Okay, so today's daf is Ayin Vav 76, and as Ken mentioned, it got a little complicated yesterday. The thing that to remember is we're still um, working with the Zacharim and the Keva, right? Do we take the corresponding forbidden relationship that is expressed in the Torah on the side of the man? Do we also apply that to his wife's relatives of the same type? Um, and so yesterday, what we did was we explained why Zacharim and the Keva, that we don't use the Gzera Shava to show that your grandmother is forbidden. Okay, um, so we've shown that we don't use the Gzera Shava to show that your grandmother is forbidden, and the Gemara will proceed from there. So I'm going to start from the fifth line on 76a. Uh, e. The word is the last word on the line. E mahu kalaso asura. So if the Gzer Shava is valid, right? Then if the Gzer Shava is valid, why don't we also say that just like for the man, his daughter-in-law is usher to him, afhi kalas asura. So his wife's daughter-in-law would also be forbidden
So
to
which
him.
Gezerah so is this Zima or is it Hena? Which one is it? No.
Zachar and the Zacharim and the Kevos. Which one is it? Uh,
There was Zima, there was Hena, there was, and then one tried to learn from one to the other.
um, so which one were we just doing? Good question. Let's turn back the page. Um, I think the last one we were dealing with was Imchahi, but that's not Xera Shava. Um, Zima. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, Zima was the last one we were dealing with. Okay.
No, I mean,
So,
but briefly
so if we're
mentioned it was
using,
Mufna was not Mufna, and then his definition was a little different than than what I heard. I think he quoted Tosfos, and I got a little lost there too.
well, I can't say I blame you. I have to confess, I find it a little bewildering also how to keep track of where we are here. Um, but what the Gemara is saying right now is if the Gzera Shava, if you're going to use the Gzera Shava, which I think is Zima, as you said, then you should say that the wife's daughter-in-law is also forbidden to you, right? Um, because the same level relative that is forbidden to you for yourself, your daughter-in-law, your wife's daughter-in-law would also be forbidden. Amar Abaye, so Abaye and Rava have two different responses to this. Amar Abaye, Amar Kra Eshes bin Chahi. You would ordinarily say yes, that they're the same, but we have a special pasuk, Eshes bin Chahi. When talking about your daughter-in-law, it repeats she's your daughter, your son's wife. Mishum eshes bincha tamachayvo v'yatamachayvo mishum eshes bina. So the Torah is saying specifically, when daughter-in-law is forbidden, when it's eshes bincha, only if it's your son, but not your wife's, not the wife of your wife's son. And Rava has a different answer. Rava Amar Ben Laman Amar Don Mino Mina Ben Laman Amar Don Mina V'Oki Biasra. You don't have to limit the Xera Shava because whether you say it's Don Mino that you just you learn something from the Xera Shava and then you continue to learn more things from it, or Bein Lo Niyar Don Mino V'Yoko B'Yasrei, or whether you say it's um, like you can learn from Xera Shafa, but only in its own context. Lo asya. You don't learn the wife's daughter-in-law as an Isser from the Xera Shafa. Mahu kalasu asura, afiname kalasu asura. Um, so you would have said that um, just as your daughter-in-law is forbidden, your wife's daughter is also forbidden. Umina, but you would continue on from that. Mahu biskila, afinami biskila. You would also get that they're both chiyuv skila. So and we don't, but we know that's not so. Why? Lamandi Amar Skila Chamura, Yikal Mifrach. Because if you say, if now it could be that, as you recall, there's two views about which is, if Skila is the worst, the most serious punishment or not. So if you say that Skila is the worst, Yikal Mifrach, Mal Lahusha Kain Imo Beskila, Tomar Behisha Imo Bestrefa. There's a different punishment if it's for you or your wife, right? If it's you, then you're sleeping with your own mother, then you get skila. But if you sleep with your wife's mother, then it's sreifa. So we see they're not quite the same, right? In other words, you don't have the exact same relationship or the exact same iser. The ode bita b'sreifa v'kalasa b'skila, and also like how could it be that you know if skila is worse, then how come? For your daughter, sleeping with your daughter, you would get sreifa, but sleeping with your daughter-in-law, you'd get skila, which is worse. That makes no sense, right? Because your daughter is obviously a closest relative. So Gemara says, well, wait, who be yochiach? No, that's not a good objection because um, your own relatives can prove that the bito b'sreifa v'kolosa b'skila. You do see that your own daughter is sreifa and your daughter-in-law, which we know is Asr, we know is b'skila. So even though it's your daughter is a closer relationship, for some reason the Torah still assigns sreifa to sleeping with your daughter, and skila, the worst punishment for your daughter-in-law.
Why
Okay,
is that?
so why we don't know. It's exeris hakasiv, I think, is the idea, but it's clear that that's the case. Um, so all right, so we take away that last objection, but Ella, there's still another problem with using the exeris shava. Mahu lo chalakto bo bein imo lo. So just as with your own relatives, there's no difference between your mother and your daughter-in-law. The penalty is the same as skila. Afilo tachlok bo bein imo chalasa. So for your wife's relatives, there should be the same punishment for your wife's daughter-in-law and your wife's mother, right? Um, so it should both be sreifa. Lamandi sreifa chamura. And if you say that sreifa is a worse punishment, me haikusha lo nidonin. Because of that, this last point, you can't derive one from the other, right? Because um, since we see that the punishment is the same for your wife's mother and your wife's daughter-in-law, um, so you can't learn the wife's daughter-in-law from the husband's daughter-in-law because the punishment is different. Okay, it's very arcane. Um, so all right, so where we are now is that your wife's daughter-in-law you can't figure out from don minomina. Um, but now, what if you say domina uvioki biasra, right? That you can derive something from a kal vachomer, but it has to be in its own context. So the Xerishav would be as follows: Mahu kalasu asura. Just as your daughter-in-law is you're forbidden to sleep with your daughter-in-law. Afi kalas asura. So you would say the same thing about your wife's daughter-in-law. Vioki biasra. And what would it mean to keep it in this context? Hasam hu de biskila. Um, it's only in your own daughter-in-law you get skila aval hacha b'streifa. Your wife's daughter-in-law you get streifa kidash kachan bima, as you find about your wife's mother. Right? It's also the same, like a different punishment. So but that wouldn't make sense because Lamandi Amar Skila Chamura, if you say Skila is worse, Ikal Mifrach Malahu Shekain Imo Beskila. You could say that your own mother, you get Skila. Tomar Behi Shima Besreifa. So can you compare that to your wife? Because if you sleep with your wife's mother, it's Sreifa, right?
Where's the
Via
Kal Vachomer here? Because I'm always saying that Kal Vachomer wants to learn from Skila in with one's own daughter-in-law. We go to Sreifa with the wife's daughter-in-law, but Sreifa is a lesser penalty. So how's that a Kal
yeah, that's
Vachomer?
that's kind of his point, right? That's exactly. So it's not a good Kal Vachomer. Exactly. V'od, and furthermore, ma'u chalakta bo bein bito lekalosa, just as your own relatives, there's a difference in the punishment for your daughter and your daughter-in-law. Afi tachlok ba bein bito lekalosa. So you should say the same about the wife's relatives, the wife's daughter and the wife's daughter-in-law, but we know that's not the case. L'mandi aranami streifa chamura. And if you say that strafe is a worse punishment, and so you can't derive one because it's not a kal and a chomer anymore. It's a chomer and a kal.
Where was the Hava mean it?
Um, the Havamina was kind of a straw man, right? I mean, once it's pointed out how um, it doesn't work, then it's pretty clear that it doesn't work.
Okay.
All right. Now back to the Mishnah. Um, so the Mishnah had said, um, so your daughter, you're sleeping with your daughter, you get srefa. Bito ma'anav. Well, that's no, fine. So your daughter from a marriage, right? That's what the Mishnah is saying. But what about a daughter from an illicit from if you raped someone and you had a daughter? Is she included in that prohibition? So Amar Abai Kal V'chomer. Abai says there's a Kal V'chomer for it. Albas Bito Anush. If your granddaughter, you're going to get it's forbidden. Al Bito Lakoshikain. So this daughter, even though she's the product of a rape, but she's still a closer relative to you than your granddaughter. So if I know your granddaughter is going to get sreifa, then for your daughter, even from a nusa, you should also get sreifa. So Gemara says, "V'chion shemin adin." What? You can't determine what the punishment is from a kal v'chomer. That's a rule. Gemara says, "Gili mil savel mehi." No, we're not learning what is the punishment. We are revealing what the punishment is. In other words, we know that it's usher. Right? That's not what we're figuring out. What we're just revealing like we don't know what the punishment is. So we're not determining it from a kal v'chomer. We're not assigning it from a kal v'chomer. We're revealing it from a kal v'chomer. It's a little bit
Well,
of a. I don't quite get the distinction here.
what is the
Um,
case here? This man raped someone. He had a daughter from that rape. Is that right?
yeah,
And now the question is, what if he has relations with the daughter of that daughter? Is that it?
no, we're comparing that daughter to a granddaughter. So we know about a granddaughter you get streifa, right? So what we're claiming now is that if we know about the granddaughter, you get streifa. So certainly, a daughter, even from a rape, which is a closer relationship than a granddaughter, you're certainly going to get streifa.
One could claim that you might get skila because this is a greater offense, right?
Right, but dialobavin adin lias kanidan, right? You can't don't that's not how you use a kal v'chomer. You can't go further than the kal. You can only say you get at least the kal, at least the same as the kal, but you can't say that you have to go further. That's the principle of dialobavin adin lias kanidan.
Yeah, I've heard that principle before.
Okay. Rava has a different answer than the Abai. How do we know that you get sreifa for sleeping with your illegitimate daughter? Amalei V'Yitzchak bar Avdimi. He says, Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi said to me, Asya Hena Hena Asya Zima Zima Zima. You have these two Xerishavas, Hena Hena and Zima Zima, which we've seen already, right? Um, so, um, so Zereshava shows you that just like the case of the wife's daughter is prohibited to you like a granddaughter, and so your own daughter through a rapist through an act of rape, will say is also usher, and then Zima Zima shows you that it's burning just like the case of Zima. Um, Tanya Avoda Rabbi Avin, there's a third answer. Lefishal Olamanu Levito Mianusasa. We don't see anywhere else in the Torah that the punishment for sleeping with your daughter that is the product of a rape. Husachakasuv uvasish kohen. We have a separate pasuk for that uvasish kohen. So as I think we saw yesterday, right, that adding the word ish in that pasuk indicates something additional. Imabas Cohen, he b'sreifa vein ba'ala b'sreifa. Wait a minute, but we're talking about you and your daughter, who's product of a rape. You both get sreifa, but in the case of Basish Cohen, it's not the case that there's the same punishment. So maybe you can't apply that here, because the man gets chenek. So afbi told me on also he b'sreifa vein ba'ala b'sreifa. Maybe that would be the case here too. Amar Kra esavia hi mechalelas. About the Bas Cohen, it says esavia hi mechalelas. She, the daughter of the Cohen, is the one who is profaning her father. And here it's the other way around. Mishum chalos avia. Yotzazu shavia mechalala. Here it's the other way around, where the father is profaning her. Um,
So she becomes a chala, but doesn't the woman that that he married, or in this case, if he the woman he raped, she also it becomes a chalala, right? Not just the
yeah,
daughter.
but I think what I think it's saying is that it's not like the coin. In the case of the Bas Cohen, it's the woman who is casting a shadow on the on her heritage, on her father, the Cohen. Right here, we're considering it the man who is placing who's placing it's not. We're not applying it to a Cohen who rapes his who sleeps with his daughter, who is the product of a rape. It's anyone who does that, but we're taking the extra word from the Bas Cohen to apply that to here. But what the Gemara is saying is, what Abaye is saying is that you can't do that because Asaviyah Himchalalos, there we're placing the blame, as it were, on the woman. And here we're placing the blame on the man. So it's not equivalent cases.
So who's becoming a chalala here? I mean, the woman is, right? And in any case, so what is the
No,
man? The man
it's
is the man's a Cohen, right, or not?
no, not necessarily. Could be anybody, right? But we're just learning from the case of the Bas Cohen. We're applying that rule to anybody.
So this woman, so what's I'm a little confused here. So this any man, if he has relations with a daughter of a Cohen, she becomes a halala. That's not the case. Is that what it's saying?
No, no. If a daughter of a Cohen does an act of znus, then she places her. It's avia himachalelas. Um, she's pogame in her heritage, right? Um, that's nothing to do with the case of a man who sleeps um, with his daughter who from a rape, right? Nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with kahuna. Okay, we're just taking the extra word from the case of the Bas Kohen and applying it to the case of the man who sleeps with his daughter, the product of a rape. So there's no kahuna here
So why are we mentioning it then? I mean,
because we're taking that word from the Bas Kohen and applying it to here. There's an extra word there, and we're applying it to this other case.
and what's the result, the implication then?
The implication, well, we wanted to say the implication is that they're um, that the one say the implication is the reason that the Torah had to say bas ish kohen, the extra word ish, is to apply streifa to this other case of the man who sleeps with his daughter, who's the product of a rape. Okay, that's the only thing we're learning from it. The rule of Sreifa. Now, Rav and Abai have different reasons why we do not do that. And Abai's current view is because you can't apply that rule from the Kohen to this guy who sleeps with his daughter, because the Sreifa that occurs for the daughter of a Kohen, that's Avia Himachalelos, where she is messing with their heritage by her actions of being a zona. Right here, it's like we're placing it on the man, not on the woman. It's not a vihi mechalelis. It's who mechalelis avia. Um, he is avia mechalala. He is the one that is placing her in jeopardy. Rav Amar, Rav has a different answer. Bishlam Hasam apikta midina Bas Kohen v'akim to adina Bas Yisrael. Okay, so there in the case of the Bas Kohen, so ordinarily she would she would get a different death, and we say no, she gets, because she's a bas Cohen, she says she gets sreifa. Hacha dina deman mukmisla. But here it's like, what death are you taking her out of? What category are you taking her out of? That's not the case. It's always sreifa. Adina mukmisla. Are you going to make her like consider her like an unmarried woman where there's no real Easter at all? Of course not. Right. So you can't say the cases are the same. You can't apply one to the other, because in the case of the bus Cohen, what the Torah is saying is it's just a different death, right? Just different misa that we're assigning her. Here, in this case, it's like it's telling us in the first place that it's usher. So you can't use that word to say no, it's a different death than he would ordinarily get. He gets the same death that he would ordinarily get. Whether for sleeping with his daughter, whether she is a daughter from a regular relationship or a or a rape. So you
But
can't apply that to this.
wait, the bat Cohen, does she? Well, what's the situation when she gets a death? She would have to be a rusa or a nesua, right? If she's a penuya, she doesn't get. There's no
Okay,
right. Isn't that correct?
I think so. I'm not sure what the definition of znus is there, but let's assume you're correct.
So why are we even? I mean, what's the case that we're talking that she gets a death penalty here?
Which one?
The
The
the the bat Cohen.
the Bakoyan. I assume that she's sleeping with someone other than her husband.
Oh, so she's married, or at
I'm
least
not
she's
sure. I'm not
engaged.
sure. I don't remember. Okay, what the case of snus is. Why do you ask?
No, I'm just trying to get it all sorted out because if she's a penuya, I don't think there's any penalty, right? I mean, she may become right. I don't think so.
I don't recall, but it doesn't sound like. Yeah.
And so it must be that she's because we're even talking about going. Yeah, I don't know what what's the nafkamina here. If she's married to her husband, what difference does it make if she's a Cohen or not? Other than she's not permitted to go back to her husband if she's a Cohen, if she's married to a
Why are you even
Cohen.
asking that in this
I'm
context?
just
I
getting
mean, go
confused.
look it up. I don't know.
No,
I
I
don't
know.
know the
I'm just
answer.
getting confused what the case is here. When we're talking about a Bitcoin, I mean, I think I know what the ruling is, but I'm just trying to figure out why are we even bringing this? What difference does it make that it's a Bitcoin or a Bat Yisrael? I mean, I don't know what the Gemara's point is here.
The Gemara's point is it's taking that extra word ish and trying to apply it to something else.
So okay, so they're learning from an extra word. Okay, that
Yeah,
happens all the time.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, now the Gemara is not done yet, though, with Bitomayan Sasov, with not the prohibition against sleeping with your daughter who's the product of a rape. Where do you get the warning? As you know, like every punishment, every Isur, the Gemara believes has to be written twice in the Torah, once as a warning and once to specify the punishment. So where does the azhara, where does the warning come from? Bishlama abai v'rava mehecha nafku luhu onish. Mehasu nafku luhu azhara. According to Abai and Rava, so you've got the extra word or whatever to specify the punishment that can also be the warning. Right? Ella l'detane avua d'Ravi Avin mai, but according to the third answer, um, where where he didn't have another pasuk, right? It was all logic, right? So where's the azhara? Amar Bilah, Amar Kra, Rabbi Bilah quotes the pasuk, Al techala l'spit chala haznosa. Don't profane your daughter to make her a zona. So we're going to apply that to any daughter, even a daughter from a rape. Maskil of Rabbi Yaakov Achua de Rabbi Achabar Yaakov, so Rabbi Yaakov asked, hi, al tchalas bichal nosa. Hi, mi Tanya. We already used that pasuk for something else for this brisa. Al tchalas bichal nosa. Yachab kohen amasiyas bitul levi v'Yisrael kasam medaber. Maybe we're talking about that you can't, a daughter of a kohen can't marry a Levi or Yisrael. Um, Maybe that's what it means. Talmud Lomer lahaznosa. So the Torah says no lahaznosa. Al tchalos bitcha. I might have thought that means daughter of a Kohen can't marry anybody who's a non-Kohen. No, it's only lahaznosa. Only if it's in the context of znus. Bechilul shebeznus hakasim medaber. It's all b'moseres bito shlo l'shem ishus. That's if you're if if you are providing your the Kohen prohibits you from providing your daughter for sex outside of marriage. Um, so if that's what Al Tchalas B'Chalaz Nosa teaches us, how can it also teach us the Azhara? Al Tachel. So the words of the use of the extra lamed is what tells us. My Al Tchalel. Why does it say Tchalel instead of Tachel? Shemami no tartes. It gives you both. Okay. So in that case, you have an extra lamed. What do Abayin and Rava do with it? Amar money. So Masi is bito l'zakein. We're talking about marrying someone to an old man. To the Tanya, as the Brisa says, Al tchalas bichol laznosa. Another Brisa states this. Don't profane your daughter to make her zona. Rabbi Elazar Amar Zamasi is bito l'zakein. We're talking about marrying off your daughter to an old man. Um, Rabbi Akiva Omer is a Hamash Habito Bogeres. Rabbi Akiva says it's something else. It's if you have a daughter who's ready for marriage and you don't allow her to get married. Amar of Kahana Mishum Rabbi Akiva Ein Lecha Ani B'Yisrael El Rosh Aram. What the poorest, like a poor person in Israel, the poorest person is a Rasha Arum, a Rasha who's sly, who's scheming. The Hamasha Bita Bageres, and someone who doesn't allow his mature daughter to get married. So Gemara says, Ato Hamasha Bita Bageres Lav Rasha Arum. That's a classic example. Like, why are you saying these are two separate things? Rabbi, no, it's what it means. Ezu Rasha Arum. What is a sly, a scheming Russia. Zeh Hamasha Bito Keres. It's someone who keeps his daughter back from getting married because presumably he's benefiting by keeping her around so she can wash the dishes and clean the house. Look out for somebody who advises you, but with his own interests at heart. Somebody who marries his daughter to an old man. That's the Hamasi Ishalivno Katan, or marries off a woman to his minor son. Or if you return a lost object to a non-Jew. To attach the thirsty to someone who is satisfied, God will not forgive him. Um,
But are we saying that's in? I'm understanding. What is the prohibition or quote? Maybe prohibition. I'm not sure. I'm using the word, but that a woman shouldn't marry someone who's older than her or much older. I mean, this happens all the time throughout history. Women often
yeah,
marry people for various reasons. You know, David Melech, they had a young girl brought to him when he was. I mean, Shlomo married what 400 people, whatever it is.
yeah.
People.
Uh-huh.
I don't understand that.
So it's casting aspersions on it, but not saying it's usher, I guess. Um, and what is the context of the old, like an old man? It's like I think the what one explanation of this is that that the daughter, the wife who marries a much older man, if he doesn't have a libido anymore, then she will be looking for satisfaction outside of her marriage. That's the context here. So we're talking about, I mean, these cases are all like the woman who marries a minor, is like he's not able to perform sexually, so she will be unsatisfied and tempted, or to fulfill herself outside of the marriage. Um,
Yeah, well, that's not it's not the same with a minor versus an older man. I mean, there may be there may be family ish benefits, familial benefits. There may be whether it's quote royalty or maybe
mhm.
monetary, or there may be other there are people that people do marry older people for for various reasons, and it may not. But and to say that he has no libido, I don't know if that's correct either. Either in their
Well, it's
time
not,
or
no,
this
it's not
time.
always the case. I think that this is one interpretation of what's going on here, what the Gemara is objecting to. But it's not clear. You're right. It's unclear like why this should be. It's not stated explicitly why this should be bad, and as you know, it happens all the time. The Gemara is not recommending it or speaking against it, perhaps in the context of where one partner would not be, the woman in particular would not be satisfied with by any kind of sexual relationship, and that puts her in a position of wanting to find fulfillment outside of the marriage. Okay, yeah, it's obviously it's a general statement which doesn't hold, and so we're looking for ways to interpret it, and that's one way to interpret what's wrong with the situation here. Meisvei, so they asked, however, Isha Kagufo, somebody who loves his wife like himself, Machabda Yoser Migufo, and someone who honors him more than himself, Madrich Banav Venosa B'derech Yishar, and someone who guides his children in the right way, Vahamasiyan Samach Lepirkan, and who marries them off close to their age of maturity. About that, the Torah says good. The Mishlei says good things. So Samuch Lepirkan means before they're mature, right? On the cusp of being mature. So this source seems to say you can't marry off a minor son. So Gemara says Samach Lepirkan Shani. No, if they're almost there, then the woman who marries your minor son doesn't have to wait very long until he is mature. Okay. Tana Rabbanan, Rabbi Sanha Oivis, I mean, it doesn't even address and if she stays unmarried, then she's also going to be, but I guess it's not as bad as straying from your marriage. Tana Rabbanan, Rabbi's taught, however, if you love your neighbors and you bring close your relatives, you marry your niece, Vamalva sell ani b'shas tocho, and you lend money to a poor person when he needs it. All of Chazomer, az tikra Hashem yanet. That about you, it said, you'll call and God will answer. Tana Rabbanon, also v'yesen. Okay, going back to the not sleeping with your mother-in-law. Tana Rabbanon, Osav Yesen, Ba'esh Yisrafu Osav Yesen. They both get burned in fire, or that's how I translate it, but we'll see. That's a machlokas. Osav Yes Achas Mihan. It means Yivu Rishon. Rishon says means not the man and both women, but the man and one of the women. And Rabbi Kiva Omer Osav Yeshtain means both of them. Maybe now, what are they arguing about? Rabbi Mashmo Starshi Mikabinau. How do you interpret the pasuk according to? It's just how to. It's just how to interpret the words. We'll see in a second. Rabbi Shmuel Savar Osav and Osav Achas Man. Rabbi Shmuel says it means one of them. But Shekem B'Lashon Yevani current Lachas Hena, because that's the Greek for one Hena. I don't know if that's true or not. V'im Chamosa Midrash Asya. Now we also kill the other one. We also punish the other woman, but that's from a drasha, right? That's from you derive that from Zima Zima. Okay, Rabbi Kiva Sover Osav Yesen Osav Yeshtei. Rabbi Kiva says no. The pasuk actually means both of them. V'im chamoso hacha ve'im chamoso haksiva, and this is the source. You don't need the Zima Zima for this case.
What is it
So
when he says one of them? Who's the one? Do we choose which one to kill?
well, it's
Or is there a
unclear. I
preference to
think
kill
it
one
doesn't.
versus the other?
No, because as the Gemara points out, Rabbi Shmuel says you kill both of them. It's just, do you get them both from the pasuk, or do you get one from the pasuk and one from the Gzera Shabbat? But you end up killing both of them anyway. So I don't know
Yeah.
which is which.
No, but don't we say that according to Abai, what did it say? It says you only kill one of them, right?
No,
No, Shmuel says you kill one of them.
what Rabbi Shmuel is saying, the Gemara explains. What Rabbi Shmuel is saying is that you actually kill both of them. According to Rabbi Shmuel, you kill one of them because it says explicitly "Osa v'yashen." You kill him and one of the women, and then from the drasha of Zima Zima, from the drasha of Zima Zima, you also kill the other woman. So you end up killing both of them. The question is, is it one from the explicit pasuk and one from Gzera Shava, or is it both from the explicit pasuk?
What's the nafkamina? They're both getting
There's
killed.
no nafkamina. That's the Gemara's point. There's no nafkamina.
They're both
They're
getting
just
killed.
arguing about semantics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Rava Amar Chamos Leachar Misa Yikbenayu. Rava says the difference is what about once your wife dies, can you sleep with the mother-in-law? Right? Rabbi Shmuel says Chamos Leachar Misa B'Sreifa. Rabbi Shmuel says you still get Sreifa, right? Because you're only the pasuk was only referring to um, one woman. Rabbi Kiva Safar Yisur Rabbi Alma. Rabbi Kiva says no, it's just an Isur. It's not it's just a lav, it's not subject to the death penalty. Okay, that's an important distinction, right? Because if it's also the hen that you only get the punishment when there's both of them are around, then that's when they're both still alive. When if they're both alive, when you slept with the mother-in-law. Um, but Rabbi Shmuel would say no. It's like the pasuk is applies even if only one of them is around. Okay.
And they're both,
Um,
but we said both of them get killed. That means when we're saying both of them, the mother and the mother-in-law get killed.
yes. No, sorry, not the mother-in-law. The wife and the mother-in-law.
The wife, but that's his wife.
Yeah. So you can't if you sleep with your wife and then with your mother-in-law, then then um then they both get killed.
The
Um,
wife, why would the wife get killed?
one second. Am I misinterpreting this? Just a second.
He's allowed to have relations with his wife.
Um, oh yeah, yeah, you're right. It's the mother-in-law and her mother. Yeah, yeah, I'm sorry. You're right. It's not the wife and the mother-in-law. It's the mother-in-law and the grandmother-in-law.
Oh, the mother
So
of his
yeah,
mother-in-law.
so that both of those women are forbidden from sleeping with him as well, and they are included in the punishment. Yeah, good one. Okay, next Mishnah, Ve'elu haneragim. These are those who suffer the death of by the sword of beheading. Harotzeach, a murderer, ansher nidachas, people in a city of all idol worshippers. Rotseach shehikas reo be'evan o b'barzel. Um, Now, a murderer is somebody who kills somebody with a stone or metal. V'kavash olav otoch hamayim otoch ha'ur v'en yochel alus v'sham, where you hold him underwater or in the fire and prevent him from getting out, and he dies. V'meis chayav. That's murder. Techafel otoch hamayim otoch ha'ur. But if you push somebody into the river or into a fire, v'yochel alus v'sham, but he could have escaped. V'meis, but he died anyway. Potter, then you're not subject to the death penalty. Shisabosakel, similarly, if you send an attack dog against someone, or Shisabosanachash, or a snake, Potter, then that's too indirect. You're not executed. But Hishich Nachash, but if you like bring the snake up to him and have the snake bite the person, so you're more directly involved. Rabbi Yehuda Mechayev v'Chachamim Patrin. Rabbi Yehuda said you're chayev. The rabbis say no. You're still not liable, and the Gemara will explain. Okay, our Shmuel. Mipnei ma lo nemo yad bebarzel. Why, when the Torah says the Evan Yad Hikahu with the stone with the hand, Obikli Barzel, but or with a metal implement, but doesn't say the word Yad with your hand. Shabar Barzel Memis B'chol Shehu, because um, an iron tool of any kind can be a murder weapon. So if it's wood or stone, then it has to be a big enough stone. to cause death, right? But metal, like even a small metal implement, can directly cause death. Um, the Gemara will explain a little later. Tanya Nami Hachi. We have a similar brisa. Rabbi Omer, Goli v'yadulaf in Misham Ravea Olam. It's revealed, it's known before God. Shabarzel memis v'kol that metal, you don't need much metal to kill somebody. Lefikach onas no Torah bo shir. Therefore, the Torah didn't give it shir. V'hani mile de barze mivras. That's if you use it right, right? Like you can pierce, like the windpipe, then or the heart or something with a knife. It can be a very small knife, right? But a very small rock, apparently, the Gemara thinks wouldn't necessarily. You have to determine if that's actually what caused the death. Now, the kosher Mishnah said if you held somebody underwater, then you're liable to the death penalty. Reisha revusa kamashmalan. The Sefer revusa kamashmalan. Both water and fire tell you something novel. Reisha revusa kamashmalan avagav delav you dechafo. Even though you didn't push the guy into the water, but you held him down in the water. Since you held him down, um, and didn't allow him to escape, you're responsible. Chayav. Sefer Uvos the second thing teaches us, the second part, Afal Gafted Chafo, even though you pushed him in, even though you pushed him in the water, and he could have, he could possibly have escaped, but if he drowned anyway, you're not liable for the death penalty. Kavash Minan, where do you get the idea that by holding somebody down in the water, even if you didn't push him in, you're still liable? Amar Shmuel Demakra, O Be'eva. That when it's talking about a murderer, it says, or he did it with as an enemy. The Rava says some same. Even like this is included. I mean, I'm not even sure why this isn't obvious, right? Like if you hold somebody underwater, even if you didn't put them in the water in the first place, you know, um, it seems like you should be liable, but the Gemara wants to get this from like even if you're doing it in a hostile way, which is obviously the case, then even if you only do the part where you're holding him underwater, you're still liable. Okay, how Gabra, there's a case of a person.
Lekaben, it says some same if he keeps him in a person in a cell without water, access to food or water. Right? Wouldn't that be
Yeah,
similar? If he keeps him in a prison, he doesn't without access to food or water, with light, so forth. That
that's right.
would be entrapping him and forcing and causing him to die by starvation, by whatever it might be, or if
Um,
not sufficient air.
well, I could go both ways. Like if somebody else put him in the cell and you didn't release him, that is not as active as holding somebody underwater.
Someone else, but if one put that person, wouldn't he be
Oh
liable?
yeah, yeah, I think that's the case. Yeah, that seems
So
right.
that would be similar to holding the person underwater.
That would be similar to putting the person in the water and holding him underwater.
Okay.
Yeah. How Gavra, there was a case, a person, the Mitzamtzima l'chayusa dechabre b'shimsha v'mesa. A guy put someone's animal out in the sun and it died from heat stroke. Ravina Machayev, Ravina says you're liable. Ravacha bar Rav Pater, Ravacha said no, it's not you, it's like the sun kitten did it. Ravina Machayev kal v'chomer. Ravina says no, you're liable because of kal v'chomer. Maratzeach shelo asabo shogi kamezid, a murderer of a person that shogeg is not treated the same as mazid, right? Onus karatza, and a accident is not considered the same as someone did something on purpose. Same, but still, if you only did the part where you prevented him from coming out of the water, then you're still liable. Nizakin Shasaba and Shoga Kumesi, just so civil liability of damage to an animal, where it doesn't matter if you did it accidentally or on purpose. If you're responsible, then you're responsible for the damages. Viona's karatza, enodin shechiv by Muslim something. So it should be the case also that just doing the part where you prevent the animal from coming back in, the minimal part, you're still responsible. And Ravacha Barav Poter, but Ravacha says, no, you're Poter. Amar Masharsha my Tamade Avodah the Poter. Why? Amar Kra, most you must Amaka Rotseachu. Talking about murder, you put to death the murderer because he's a murderer. But Rotseach Hudachayv Lankum Samsing. Only the murder, we're going to apply this like, when are you liable? Only if you're a murderer. And we're applying that to the mitzamtzem, right? The case where you're only preventing the guy from coming out of the water. But nizakin lo chayv lo mitzamtzem. But nizakin, you don't have the word rotzeachu or maziku. So we don't apply this idea of mitzamtzem.
So what's when Mizakin means what? That someone else did the damage and you're preventing him?
Yeah, like the animal was already out in the sun and you locked the gate, right? You kept the animal from coming inside.
So what's the penalty there?
So that's the machlokas. Are you responsible or not? Obviously, that's not a capital case, right? It's a damages case. But are you responsible or not? So, do we derive that from the corresponding case of murder? Yes or no? That's the machlokas here.
But is this we have the principle of the kol v'chomer ain dan lefi din? What is that again?
Daya labami nadin lias kanina.
Dayan
But this is a kal v'chomer. Yeah, this is a kal v'chomer. So how does that violate daya labami nadin? What we're getting at is, are you responsible? We're not trying to say that you should be killed for killing the animal. That's not what we're saying. We're saying, are you responsible for the damages the same way you would be responsible for a murder? But the punishment's obviously different. So that's not a dialabami and a dain lias kanina.
So then it's not a valid kol v'chomer, then, is it?
Yeah, it is. Dialabami, the disqualifying of a kal v'chomer from dialabami nadin, it doesn't disqualify a kal v'chomer. It just says you can't go too far with the kal v'chomer. You can't derive more from the kal v'chomer
Right.
than the kal for the
Right.
chomer from the kal. Yeah, I see why you're asking the question, but I don't think it'll apply. All right, that's it for today. Have a good day, everybody.
I tell you, this is a bit this is a bit complicated. Following who's who,
Well,
where.
yeah, this is better than who's sleeping with who, though.
No, I mean in general, this whole
Yeah, it's very
discussion
difficult.
before. I
It's
mean,
very hard to follow Gemara. I agree with you. I'm a little at sea also.
right.
Okay, have a good day, everybody.